Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have with me Jennifer Regular. Hey, Jennifer.
Hello, this is so awesome that we get to gather together in this way, Dr. Kimberly. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, it is very exciting. And you had me on your show a few days ago. So we're just swapping here and just sharing each other's brilliance. So I hope that what I shared will inspire your audience. And I know what you're going to share today is going to inspire my audience.
I really appreciate that they're tuning in for this.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and read your short bio so people get an idea of who you are. So, Jennifer Regular is a visionary leader and transformational coach dedicated to empowering individuals to reclaim their inner power, align with their soul mission, and live with passion and purpose. As the founder of Lighting the Path, she guides spiritual changemakers and light leaders to ignite their potential and create meaningful impact in their personal and professional lives. Well, our what we talk about is really, really similar. Different but
Yes.
similar because I know you go at it from a different angle than I do. So, but just so people know you, tell us your story, how you started out, how you got into this.
Yeah, there's different pieces of my story that all came together in what I'd say was a pivotal moment in 2006. And what I discovered after years of trying to live a life based on who I thought I was and what other people expected of me. And turns out that it just drained my energy. I had so much resistance to living my full passion and purpose that I was depleted. I was emotionally exhausted. I was so out of alignment with anything that was me, that was true for me. And I remember just lying in bed after leaving, a very disturbing domestic situation, let's call it, and feeling like everything was gone, everything was lost. The pets, the home, the husband, the bank accounts I had, like the job, my motivation, my enthusiasm, my sense of peace and safety, all of it just gone. And I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and just not having a vision anymore of what I wanted my life to be. And being a visionary without a vision is like I didn't even exist. It was just like, who is this Jennifer Regular? Like, what is she really about now? Like, I didn't feel any kind of life force coming through me until all of a sudden there was this big jolt, like this energy jolt. Have you ever had that kind of like wake up call? It was like an adrenaline rush that kind of just literally jolted me out of my bed, and I stood up, and it dawned on me what passion was really about. That surge of energy, it wasn't so much energy, even, it was about a calling. It was a calling. And what information I received in that moment was that when you break up the word passion, it's pass I on. And that I is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And I was just like, wow, yeah, yeah, because it took me back, like almost like flashing through all of the different losses I had experienced in my life, like some of the ones I just mentioned, but also by the time I was 21, there were 17 deaths of family and friends. And it just kept going since then. This is like decades later now, but I remember that every time I attended a wake, a funeral, a celebration of life, and listening to what people talked about the person that had passed on, it was about their essence, their spirit, what they had passed on to the generations, to their friends, to their colleagues, and so on, that was being remembered, that was being celebrated. And that's the I that we're here to pass on in this lifetime. Like, what is that for me? And then I found that in order for me to truly be myself, I had to recover myself. And so that took me on a healing journey. And through that healing journey, everything that I learned and that helped me grow and evolve and reclaim my inner power and my life force, I'm like, oh, I got to share this with everybody else. This can't just be for me. And so that's really where this part of my life and this part of my work began.
Beautiful. So I love your definition of passion. Pass
Mm,
I on. And I, that's us, that's ourselves. And we're here to pass something on. And I truly believe that we all have, I believe, more than one gift, many gifts, talents, and things we're supposed to share and give out, and things we're supposed to master in this life, where it adds not only to our life, but the lives of other people. So I really like that definition of pass I on. And I wanted to go back to the part where you were talking about, everything was gone. I mean, everything was gone. And there are
mhm,
people, listening right now that they're in that place. And I've asked this question to other people because a lot of us have that reckoning day, if you will. So
mhm.
after you had that reckoning day, and this, like I said, people answer all sorts of things with this. What was the first thing you did to search for your next step? Like, what did you do? Some people do meditation, some people read their Bible, some people, what was your first thing you did in that journey?
I signed up for Wise Woman Weekend, and I went there on what would have been an anniversary of my wedding anniversary. And I went there and I met all of these different practitioners and amazing women, of course, very wise, and had a lot of insight. And I got to experience all of that, the people that were there, what they had gone through, how they were living their lives now, all the different healing modalities, nourishing food. It gave me a place to stay because at the time that was an issue too. It's about where do I go from here? And so I went there. And then I met a lady that did integrated energy therapy. And I found that really profound difference to my energy. Like I was a counselor at the time, and actually I was living in not living, working at a women's shelter at the time as well. And I just felt like I was always the go-to person. And so I didn't really feel like I had a go-to person. And there was these masks that I would put on because who do I talk to and who would come to me if, I'm in this vulnerable state and all of that. And I had someone from victim services give me permission. She said, and she gave me this insight that, you can be strong and vulnerable at the same time. I'm like, oh, okay. And that sort of grew my capacity to be strong and vulnerable at the same time. And that lady that gave me the treatment, I decided to take some training with her. And so I learned how to do integrated energy therapy, which really helps eliminate those imprints from the cellular memory area of our body. There's 9 areas that correlate with specific emotions, for example. And so we release the lower vibrational energy and integrate the higher vibrational energy so that we don't attract the same kind of experiences over and over. And we match a vibration that attracts more of what is the truth of why we're here and who we are. And so that was kind of the pivotal moment in that way, and then drew me to the healing arts after over 20 years of working in social services and helping people that were lost in the system get out or connect and support and resources, overcome barriers. Anyone that's become dispirited became someone I wanted to support and help and connect them with who they truly were. So it's facilitating that in many different forms, through that kind of employment, through the healing work, and then doing transformational courses and all of that. And so that's what kind of led me to the next step, and then the next step, and the next step after that. But really, what led me through all of those steps was trust and faith and really letting go and allowing the support that was available, allowing the resources, allowing the vulnerability to be there and the strength.
Yeah, it's not always easy to share our deepest feelings, thoughts. You know, we're wondering, even with practitioners, sometimes there's a feeling of, are they judging me? What if I
Mm-hmm.
tell them what's really happening over here, and they have a shock on their face or something like that?
Yeah. And what we're finding out more and more now, because I'm more into the leadership field these days. And you know what? Underneath or behind every leader is a story of trauma. There's a story of trauma. And we're learning how to lead our lives differently, how to stand for what we believe in, to draw up our inner power, and to be able to guide and bring forth others along the journey with us.
So yeah, it's really hard to lead if your life has been all rainbows the whole time. You have no empathy, you have no understanding of where people are coming from because people are coming into work or an organization or wherever they're getting together and doing a project. And, we don't really leave that all behind when we get to our place of work. We still have all that going on in the background, uh, including, like you said, those imprints or those filters, or people call them different things, but those things that
Mhm.
make us act the way we act, even when it's not reasonable sometimes.
Right. And that action can vary. There's leaders who will really operate out of ego and want to be controlling and full of authority and like take a stance and perform, right? And then there's those leaders that are very inspiring and motivating and want to hear and be open to people's ideas and thoughts and how to bring that about, and to be able to create rather than control.
So, what do you think happens when you have a controlling leader? What happens when they're not there? Do people just say, "Oh, good, this person's not here today.
Yeah,
Your work's not up
sometimes,
here."
yeah, you feel like you can breathe a little more easily and you can just relax and kind of be more yourself. There's also a real aversion to that. It really deteriorates morale, for example, and people, you don't get the best out of people
Mhm.
when they're feeling low or unappreciated and not wanting to do that. And some people will just tune them out, and then there's some people who are really eager to please and be on their good side and fear that kind of authority and power and actually will give it away to them.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when we lead from love, from empathy, how do we balance that in a way that, yes, we're going to lead and let people be who they are, but still get our results?
I think the key word there is our results, not my results, but our results. So, people say that the teamwork makes the dream work, right? To get those kind of results, to be living the dream and create that reality, it needs to be co created. We need everyone on board and being their best selves in that to really have the kind of effect, in fact, that you haven't even dreamed about because you don't know what's possible if you're still trying to control every aspect of what you think needs to happen in order to have a particular outcome. There's an attachment to an outcome there. And whether you're leading your life, whether you're leading in a relationship or at work, that you want to be detached from the outcome. You want to bring people along with you for a shared vision and purpose in order to be in harmony with each other, with the values, with the mission of the company, with your own personal values, so that you can have the deepest level of fulfillment and commitment with everyone involved. And that's what's going to get you results beyond what you could have ever imagined. And by results, I actually mean impact.
Mhm.
Yeah. Make really truly making a meaningful difference in the world.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about, what to do as far as healing piece, the light, the transforming piece. So when you work with leaders, what are some of the things they come in with saying that they're struggling with, and how do you lead them to help them to resolve those?
Yeah, well, a lot of it's, isolation, loneliness is really huge in the workplace, especially now when so many more people are working alone or working online and not having the same kind of water cooler social contact that you used to have and kind of your work family, that we used to talk about. we're having to create that now because it's been a huge loss in organizations and companies not to have the same kind of culture or environment where everyone can thrive in. In some cases, we're glad that we don't have to commute all the time and or be around certain people that we didn't necessarily get along with, or those kind of bosses that you mentioned earlier. But loneliness, isolation is really huge. And absenteeism, retention rates, I mean, stress, the demands, the pressure, everything is so advanced now and needing instant results and instant gratification that our nervous systems can't handle that kind of pressure all the time. So you see people that are on medication or having to take time off or being on disability. And I can think of so many colleagues that ran into those same issues working in social services. And even though we had a lot of benefits that we could use and access and that we're really grateful for, it didn't match the level of stress that everyone was under. And so there's a lot of mental health issues, primarily anxiety, depression, suicide. And there's also anger that comes up and, a whole host of other things that happen that create dis-ease and disorder because there's dis-ease and disorder within our lives and our relationships and the company. And so, yeah, that's why I'm such a big advocate about co-creating global harmony and really bringing people together and supporting each other. And because we can't do it all ourselves, Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. And this is a little bit of what I spoke about in a chapter in a recent book that I co-authored with 21 other soul professionals called The Ultimate Guide to Leaving a Legacy. And my chapter in there was about leading with passion, and passion in the way that I've been talking about, right? And lighting the path to profound impact and collective transformation. This is what I feel we're being called as a humanity to be able to do, is collectively transform, not in isolation, but together. And like you said earlier, like we both kind of have similar language, we're doing similar things. Yes, because we all have a piece in this universal mission for shining our light and sharing our purpose and being able to truly live and embody that passion and purpose. So I think this is where we're headed now, although, a lot of people may not be able to see that if they're being attached to certain outcomes, if they're fearing how things are being socially disrupted and structurally disrupted, and it is very unnerving. And that's what it takes, though. Like there's a quote about where the universe says, I had to make you uncomfortable, otherwise you wouldn't move. Mm-hmm. Right? We have to, disrupt the narrative. Basically, we have to change the narrative because the old ways aren't working anymore, and that's where the transformation comes in, collectively, but also individually. I had to also move beyond any ways or roles that I had before and step into a whole new way of being. And it takes courage to do that. There's a big shift that happens when you move from obligation into passion, fear into love, and coming out of that fog space. And I love the acronym for fog, because it really feels, when you're in a place of fear, obligation, and guilt, which is what the fog stands for, it feels like you are in a fog. Everything becomes obscure. It's heavy. It's dense. It doesn't really feel that great, And so we want to move out of that kind of paradigm and motivation for living our lives and working in that way into our passion. What is the I that we're here to pass on in this lifetime? And that comes about from reconnecting with your values, who you are, what you stand for, being able to embrace your own uniqueness and not try to be like everyone else to fit in, because a lot of the visionaries and change makers I work with don't. They don't, and so we've come together. There was an article I wrote on my Inspired Living blog too about that, about gathering the black sheep. That's what I find we're doing now, because we need the people around us to support ourselves, to be able to help us sustain our energy and passion and momentum, to be able to provide each other with support and resources, and be in a culture that is life sustaining, not draining and sucking our soul energy away. Like that moment I was lying in bed where I just didn't feel anything anymore.
Yeah. So, some of the people that we see around us, and it might be even ourselves, um, we're successful. We're doing well. When
Mm-hmm.
everyone looks at us from outside, they say, "Well, wow, your job's going well. You're making money. Your family looks like you have a nice family. You're going on vacation, as much as you want to." And then there's inside, this person is thinking, they're still dissatisfied. There's a dissatisfaction because they know there's something else they're supposed to be doing. And so
Mm-hmm.
the outside, when they try and switch, because people go, don't stop doing what you're doing. I mean, I'm going to make up an example. You're the president of the company. Why do you go and leave this corporate company and start
Yeah.
an Etsy shop? I'm just making up stuff. But
Oh, sure.
why do you
It
want to do
happens
that? And it's
because
like,
that's their
because
calling.
that's their calling. They still aren't satisfied. But when
Yeah.
it's happening, there's family members around that aren't understanding. There's friends that aren't understanding. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're in that position where you're doing that transition and you're going towards your passion, even though from the outside you're kind of getting pressure, and even as adults, we still want to um please our parents, and your parent goes, "What are you doing?" How how do you transition through that? And who do you talk to, or do you just talk to yourself and journal?
You keep what's true in front of you and you don't get lost that way. You hold on to your own personal truth, you be the light and show them the way. They just don't know what to expect from all of that. And they're kind of scared and they don't want things to change, and they have a certain picture of how things need to be, or they become dependent on the role that you played in their lives for so long. And yet you get to be a trailblazer. You get to be a role model of the light. You get to be this person that maybe you yourself didn't even know existed within you until you start stepping into it and embodying that and trusting that in the process. Decide on how you're going to be in right relationship with yourself, with creator, with your higher power, your higher self. That's the relationship I think trumps any other kind of relationship and expectation. And so you are going to lose people along the way. That's fact. You are going to not be alone in this though either, because you're going to be attracting the people that are growing with you, that are evolving with you. And it's not a superiority thing by any means. It's just living life differently. And that's what we're doing for all of our descendants as well, and healing all across our DNA line, forwards and backwards in every direction, to interrupt those patterns that feel limiting, so that we can grow and evolve as a species and be better for ourselves and in our family. So I think it's just about being in integrity and standing in your conviction, not about your beliefs, but about your convictions and staying true to that. So being in integrity with that.
I have another question that's coming up from below somewhere.
Okay.
It's talking about living in your passion and going in that direction, but still taking care of yourself. Because sometimes we get so focused on what we're
Yeah.
doing and so focused on the performance piece that we forget about ourselves. And that's
Yeah.
not good either. And you'll see leaders who are doing really well, and all of a sudden, they twist their ankle or they get sick, and they're sitting there going, "Oh, I have things to do," but there they are sitting in the hospital because they didn't take care of themselves.
Yeah. And, I was interviewed by this on another podcast actually about putting your well being first. And I have it as a track on Insight Timer as well, that the meditation app. And it's one of the most popular, which is nice to see because it shows how much more interested people are in putting their well being first. And as a leader, putting yourself first puts you in a position of leadership, right? You're showing the way again, and you're being that. Because what happens is we all say we want health and well-being, but we're constantly putting and prioritizing productivity and performance. And when you're performing, it comes through conforming to your role, conforming to expectations, getting into that fog that I mentioned earlier, the fear, obligation, and guilt, all comes from performance, and it's draining, and there's pressure. You think of performance athletes, right? There's a lot of pressure, a lot of training, but they're very disciplined, but they're also convinced in what they're doing and how they're doing it. So it's a little bit different from that type of performance that I'm talking about, or theater performance. It's about when you're in the space of trying to prove something, or you're in a cycle of perfectionism and procrastination, which is the flip side of the same coin. And so what I'm saying is that it's intentional creation of your life to put your health and well-being before productivity and performance. And it takes a shift. It's a real mind twist because we're not used to that. We're not programmed that way. And so there's a lot of deconditioning that happens, that we're learning to value rest as a necessity, not a luxury. We're learning to take time to reflect and to create some space and stillness for intuition or inspirations to flow, for us to be present with our partners, our friends, our family, our children, to be able to go out into nature and to travel and do all those wonderful things we spoke about earlier that people create a success around by productivity and performance. They haven't been really taking good care of that health and well-being piece. And that's why things feel out of alignment. And that's why there's the dissatisfaction and no true sense of fulfillment, because they were really great in certain areas of their life, but not so great in the other areas of their life. And so there's a huge discrepancy there. And that's where the disconnect happens. So when we don't engage in soul care, then all of that's at stake. There's conflicts, there's anger, there's anxiety and depression. We actually become numb. We start reacting to life instead of embodying it. And so the way out of that, the remedy for that is, intentionally thinking about health and well-being first, and also engaging in soul care. What feeds your soul? Making that part of your to-do list. I would suggest even putting it number one, taking care of yourself first, even if it's like a little thing that you do for yourself first before you do, and for anyone else, like a meditation or an inspirational reading or doing a 3-minute breathing practice or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be big and profound to make a difference. So putting yourself first, putting your health and well-being first is huge, because you really can't have the kind of influence and impact you want without it.
Right. Health is our wealth.
Yes, absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, before we came on, we were talking about that, you move around quite a bit. And,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when putting in those habits of, going to the gym or doing yoga or doing meditation, it's much easier when you have a stable home base, because you can kind of just put it on your schedule and like, okay, I'm going to do it. So my question is a little more personal. What things do you do for yourself? Maybe something you do every day in the morning or a certain time of day. And how do you do that even though you're moving around quite a bit?
Yeah, my morning routine for sure. Like that's non-negotiable. Having my morning routine, and I'll share a little bit about what that is. But the routine itself is what creates the stability too. So even though I'm moving around a lot, I'm a digital nomad kind of lifestyle, that offers stability. It's the same thing no matter where I am. I'm getting up. I am thanking, my angels and guides and, creator for this beautiful day ahead of me, and what's to come from that. I'm doing a couple of stretches. I do an inspirational reading. I do a morning meditation practice. Sometimes I'll do automatic writing. I go through different phases. Like I have a pretty big toolbox, that journey that I took, to recover myself so I can be myself. I gathered a lot of tools and resources to resource myself. And so I do draw on different things at different times, but these are some of the examples of what I do. So there's a combination of those, like this whole buffet, and choose what to fill your plate with. And then I do some qigong practice, which I love. And yeah, so and that's a daily thing. And then weekly, I'll do a Sunday sit down, and I'll look at my, bigger calendar, and I'll go through my weekly calendar, and I'll jot down, what I'm going to be doing that week and who I want to be and how I want to show up and what kind of qualities are important. And I make sure those things are aligned with my values and my mission and what I'm meant to be doing, so that I don't become scattered and all over the place. That I actually have, even though I'm multi-passionate, have a particular drive and focus, so that I make the best use of my time, energy, and my passion, so that I can be more whole and complete and present with whoever I'm supporting in that moment, including myself. And yeah, there's many other practices that I share in the Leadership Ascension Alliance and in different sessions and so on, and tips that I share in posts and in the Inspired Living blog that goes into, a lot of those options that you can have to draw on to create your own practice. And this is the thing too that I'll just mention, is that a lot of people talk about tiny habits or atomic habits or creating new habits. I like to talk about more about practices, because habit to me, and that habit energy, it's kind of chasing. It's kind of like a not enoughness kind of mentality that goes underneath that. And as if we're trying to improve something or fix something that's not necessarily broken. You're not broken. You don't even have to change anything, right? It's more about revealing who you truly are. And that comes through different practices, spiritual wellness practices, physical, mental practices that support you being able to discover more of yourself and be more of yourself through that.
Beautiful. I love that. I love doing the practice just for the sake of doing a practice because it feels good to do that.
Mm,
And when you're doing a practice, unlike a habit, with a habit, like when I miss the gym day, I'm like beating myself up. Why'd you miss the gym day?
right,
It's
exactly.
really
Yeah.
different than a practice. But I also like the competition with myself, though.
Yeah, yeah.
For years I did CrossFit, and there's nothing like going up another 2 pounds. It's a little two more than you did last week.
Oh no.
That's pretty exciting,
Yeah.
also.
That you can lift more. Yeah, why not? Yeah, that's exciting. But then it comes from a place of playfulness, right?
Mhm. Oh yeah, just what? See what can I
And
do next?
exploring, and yeah,
Right.
what else can I do? Yeah, what else is possible? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, is there anything else you would like to share?
I just want to really encourage people to do you, to be you. And if you're struggling with your never ending to do list, you can create a to be list as well. What would you put on there? Who do you want to be? How do you want to be? And then compare that in your to do list and see, cross reference it, see where it matches up and where it doesn't, because that's going to help you decide on what you need. And then be able to offer that to yourself. Love yourself enough to take the time to look at how you're living and look at how you're being, and not to, cast any kind of judgment or anything like that, or anything that you have to improve. But it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was happening, or I was doing that. And then we can start creating those practices and the changes that can support you in being a better version, a more fuller version of who you are, so that people get the best of you and not what's just left of you.
Mm. You have some really good sayings.
I
People
call it soul
back
streaming.
with
It just
you
comes through and comes out
instead
my
of in
mouth.
front of you. God in the fog, and I
Nice
love
ways
your
to
little
remember these
acronym.
things. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm a big acronym person for sure. Yeah.
So, if people wanted to connect with you, if this is the part where you say, where can we find you and what
Hmm.
services do you have? You talked about a blog and a book, and just
Oh
this is
yeah.
the advertising piece right here.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I'd love for people to connect. Absolutely. You can reach out to me on my website and find all of those offerings on my website as well. So, probably the best place to start, and that's lightingthepath.ca.
Okay, lighting like Lighting,
That's right.
EPATH. Okay.
Yes, .ca because I'm in Canada.
Yeah, you're in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right. And then all your everything is right there. So if they want to,
Yeah, you'll find information about that Leadership Ascension Alliance, the podcast, which is Awaken and Ascend. It's actually a YouTube show, so you'll find that there. And of course, the interview that I had with you, Dr. Kimberly. And there's different soul sessions that are offered, ways to connect with me on social media like LinkedIn or Lineable, Instagram, and all that's there too. And that's where the Inspired Living blog is as well. And if you wanted to get a inspired, what did I call it? Intentional living for the awakened leader. It's a 3 audio series that you can sign up for free on there as well, and then you get on my list and you get to hear about all the wonderful events that are happening. And you can, of course, you can unsubscribe anytime, but that gives you a good way to get a taste of what I'm all about, what I offer, and see if any of it resonates with you. I'm here to support you.
all right. Well, thank you. So now I have a personal question.
Okay.
What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
The most happiness and fulfillment for me, nature and animals is my thing.
Mm.
To be totally honest, I might even like them more than people. So that's a must for me. That's a need that I have, and without it, I don't feel fulfilled or complete. I need nature and animals around me for sure. So I will say that is my answer.
All right. Well,
And
thank
I
you.
say that as I'm looking around at this forest of trees in front of me, which I love.
Aw.
Yeah,
Where
they're
are you
my
right
people.
now?
I'm in the North Okanagan, which is in the west coast of Canada.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful up there. So many nice
Hmm.
places in Canada.
There is. There is.
So, yeah, but thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your wisdom and I know it's going to inspire people.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really lovely to be here, and I really appreciate you, Dr. Kimberly, and everyone that's been tuning in.
Thanks. So, I have one last question.
Okay.
What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Live true to yourself. Live true to yourself because, yeah, if you start breaking promises to yourself and not being true to yourself, there's just no way for you to truly be happy and at peace. So be true to yourself.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you again soon.
I love that.